couple of things that I'm going to talk about today are organization. How do we keep ourselves organized in Final Cut? The first thing to do is to make sure you know where all of your files are going. Final Cut works with what you call scratch disks, which is basically just folders where Final Cut knows to find everything. If you're working on a computer that a lot of other people tend to work on as well, they may be resetting where the information is being saved to. So you should always, if you aren't working on your own computer, you should always look at where the information is set to go. And the way that you do that is you go up to Final Cut Pro, then you go down to System Settings, and the very first tab is your scratch disks. So it'll tell you where, right here, it'll tell you where to find where to find the folder where everything that you log and capture is going to go to. So if that's not the folder that you're familiar with, I don't know if you guys have your own set of folders that you work with that nobody else ever uses or touches or is supposed to use or touch, then you want to make sure that it's always set to your specific folder. And so you just do that by hitting Set and then finding your folder, just like you would find any other file, and then hit Choose. For the purpose of this, I'm hitting Cancel. So you always want to check that every time you reopen Final Cut Pro if you are using somebody else's computer, just to make sure that your files aren't going all over the place. Another thing to do to make sure that you're not going to be missing your files or you can't find your files is to always try to work on the same computer, at least for the duration of the project that you're working on. If you switch projects later, you want to switch computers. That's okay. Don't switch in between projects because then you're going to have to move all your files from one computer all the way onto another computer, and it causes you a lot of hassle because you're going to have to find all those files, figure out a way to transfer them. If you don't have like a network or something, then you're going to need an external hard drive, and it's just going to get really complicated. So try to choose a computer that you're comfortable with and continue working on that computer for the duration of the project. You always want to save first. I know that sometimes maybe you're just trying something, you don't necessarily want to save your project right away, or why do I need to save it right away? Like, shouldn't I do something to it first? No, always save it right away, and here's why. Every time you log and capture something, Final Cut Pro always immediately makes a folder in which to put all of your capture scratch, all of your video files that it's making when you log and capture. If you don't save your project first, it's going to create a file folder called something like Untitled Project 1. So if you continuously forget to save your files save your Final Cut Pro files, the project that you're working on, before you log and capture, you're going to end up with a zillion untitled folders. And then you're never going to be able to find any of your files, and it's just going to become a complete mess. So if you just save first every time you come on to work on a new project, it's just going to make your life so much easier in the long run. And that's a similar point is to be very careful about naming everything. When you log and capture, it gives you the option of naming your file. Here, let me bring something up so I can show you guys. Okay, I don't have a camera hooked up, so it's not going to show me everything that it normally would. But right here in the description box, that's the place where you want to name your clip. And you want to think about making it a really intelligent name, because if you don't, if you're ever trying to find that file again, it's just going to be a big pain, because you're going to have a zillion files named Untitled. And then you're going to have to look at each one and try to figure out which Untitled is your Untitled. And it's a headache that you really don't need, and it can be really easily avoided by simply typing in a new description that really fits your clip every time. So let's say like we're doing a video of a cat. You know, you might want to do cat take 1. And you want to name every single take separately. So that way you're going to be able to find that file easily. You can't really go back in and rename it afterwards, because then Final Cut's not going to understand exactly where to find it. The way that Final Cut understands file names is it's going to give it a location where the last segment of that location is the actual file name. So it might be something like my Mac slash my documents slash Final Cut Pro slash cat project 1 slash cat take 1, and that's going to be the actual full name of the clip that that the timeline is referencing. If you don't have all of that, all of those folders properly named, or you rename something, Final Cut Pro is not going to know where to find it. So you want to make sure that you're really careful about what you name things before you get everything set up. Now, what happens if you can't find something because it did get a name changed, or it did change locations? Now you have to tell it where to find that file so that way you can play your clips. Well, what'll happen is you'll see a little, it'll probably tell you that your media went offline, and then you'll see that your clip got this little red slash through it as if it's just been logged and not captured. And the way that you relink it is by right-clicking on that clip, or you can do this in File and then hit Reconnect Media. But you can right-click on that specific one if you're just missing one, and hit Reconnect Media, and then you're going to select your clip, and then either locate it manually in here, and just go through and tell it exactly where to find it, and then hit Choose. That will relink it, and then you can just hit Connect. Or you can try search. Search doesn't usually help. It's usually hard to find it. And once again, if you have a zillion untitled clips and you're looking for untitled, not only is it going to be hard to find it manually, but search is really not going to be able to find it because it's going to come up with like 6 different clips that have the same name. It's going to be really difficult. So you want to make sure you name everything correctly, and if you do need to find it, that's how you find it, by hitting Reconnect Media. The other nice thing about knowing how to set your scratch disks is that when you go to look at, like if you're not sure where your folders are, when you go to, you can just pretend like you're setting your scratch disks by opening up the system settings, and that'll tell you where everything is besides that, and you can see where the autosave vault is. So if the program did crash, you can easily find where your autosave vault is if you didn't know, by going into your system settings and just looking at where it gives you right here the file location. So then you can just open up your autosaved project from there. If you are going to do a really long take of something, like let's say you're going to do like 20 minutes to an hour, don't log and capture that as one single clip, because then you can never keep that transfer that footage onto anything else except an external hard drive. Because the file size will be larger than 4.38 gig, which is the amount that you can fit onto a DVD. So if you know that you're going to log something really big and you want to save that footage afterwards, my advice is to make sure that you capture it into 2 separate clips, or more than that. If you're doing something that's like an hour long, make sure that you don't capture more than, let's say you're doing it in standard definition, not high definition.
So like a football game.
Yeah, like if you're doing a football game, make sure that you don't have more than like 10 to 15 minutes of video in a file all its own. Because if you have more than that, the file's going to be too big to put onto a DVD. So what do you do instead? Well, when you put your endpoint for when you're logging, like let's say like the first endpoint is like 00000100, right, or something. Okay, we're starting at like the first minute, and then like your out point, let's say, is like 15 minutes after that. Okay, 15 minutes and 20 frames, let's say. Okay, let's just pretend that for a second. Okay, so we're capturing like about 15 minutes of footage. The next, just instead of using capture now, I know that that's tempting, but the best thing to do is to log the clip instead at that point, and then I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen this, and you might not always do that. Okay, if you're doing something, this is logging your clips is it's ingenious. Okay, you don't have to sit there and be like, yeah, when am I going to stop this? Wow, I have to watch the whole thing. No, you log it all first with using fast forward, just telling it where to start and stop the clip with using the time code. You understand that tapes all have a time code. It's specific. Every frame has a certain number to indicate that it's that frame. You log everything, then you walk away while it's doing it. You go have a sandwich, or you go have a coffee, or you do whatever the heck you want to do, because you can do that. That's the beauty of Final Cut Pro.
Can we go into that in detail? Because
Yeah.
I've done it once, but for the most part, we capture now, we drag it down, and then we edit from there.
Okay, so let's say we were. I mean, I don't have a camera hooked up to this, so it's going to be. You're guys going to have to use your imaginations. What happens is, what you would do is you'd hook the camera up, you'd hit play, right? You watch where you want the clip to come in, right? Like where you want to start a clip. So let's use like the football game for an example, okay? Let's say that we want to just segment just the pregame show, okay? We want just the pregame show to be its own clip, and we're not going to be concerned about getting the whole thing all at once, right? So first of all, we're going to name things. Okay, we're going to name it pregame show. Okay, now we have a name for it. All right. Now, let's say the pregame show starts at 1 minute into the take, and we know that after we're hooked up to the camera, we hit play on the camera. We're watching it, and we see, oh, the pregame show is about to start. You hit I on your computer, okay? You're not going to see it on here because, like I said, I don't have a camera hooked up at the moment, but I is a quick key for something called making an endpoint. And that basically means you're just making a little note to the computer saying, hey, this time code is important.
So it's going to like, when you press I, it's going to put the numbers in itself.
Yes, exactly. So wherever the camera is at that moment, whatever the time code is at that exact second when you hit I, that's where it's going to save the time code right over here in this little bottom
the other
area.
Thing with that is, you know how you log everything,
Nope,
and
you
then
don't
I
need
always
to.
yell about your capture scratch, how you run out of room and blah 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 blah. You could go in and log, and if you log everything, then you're not going to end up burdening your capture scratch files because you're
that a
only going to
400 or
use
an
what you need
800?
to. It's a 400.
Okay, good,
So
excellent.
I guess it's a different button for when you want it to stop.
Right. Well,
So I would be where you want it to start.
And those
here,
are
let
these.
me get this kind of going with the camera. Ooh, it quit on me. Speaking of, okay, while this is starting up, it's a good idea to know where the auto save vault is in case that happens to you. It quits, and your project goes bye-bye. You know what I mean? Because it's automatically saving copies for you usually by default every 30 minutes. Because I showed the last class, you can change that that time, and I guess you can just tell them at another point or something. I'm not going to bother going into that at the moment since we've got
This is huge though, guys, because everybody in here goes file capture now. And you capture everything. And then you go through everything, where in reality, instead of walking away when you're capturing, if you sit there and just do I's and O's with what you need, then you can leave and you can do what's called batch capture.
right. Yeah. Is there a tape in there? Okay, excellent. Okay. As you know, or as you should know, you can control the camera through these controls on the computer, and you never really have to touch the camera at all.
It's on camera.
Yeah, oh, it's even him. I'm like, what is it? I was like, what is it?
Okay, it's on there. Okay, and as you can see up in this corner, well, it might be hard for you to see up there, but, and guys, you know, if you need to at any point because you really want to see something, don't be too shy to like come over and just like take a peek and see exactly what I'm pointing at and stuff, because this is, you know, like I said, this is your way of learning it, and it's, you know, it's your time. When I rewind stuff, you can actually see the time code up in the top box over here changing. It'll tell you this is where the time code is, okay, at that moment. Okay, so let's say we want to start, we're playing, and we're going to look at a time when we want to start this. Okay, oh, we just had an edit there. Wait, they're setting up a new play. Okay, I hit I to make an endpoint there. And I don't know if you noticed, but this little number down in this corner changed at that point, okay? Because this number is the endpoint that you make. And that's basically telling it where to start the clip. We're going to make a new clip starting right here at this time at 1 hour, 1 minute, and 20 frames. Or, I'm sorry, 1 minute, 1 second, and 20 frames, okay? So right now I paused it, but you don't have to pause it. You can just hit I, and it'll automatically make an endpoint, okay? And it can do it while it's paused as well. Make sure that you can hit it multiple times to change the endpoint, so you don't have to always get it right the first time. But if you hit it again and you go, oops, I didn't want that one, like want it to start there, you got to go back and make a new endpoint because it's going to change it every time you hit I. So you can play it after you hit I and find the spot where you went out. Well, let's say you can fast forward. That's the beauty. You don't have to watch it. So let's say, like, okay, you know, I'm going along, da 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 da. Oh, that's where I went out. And thank goodness I didn't have to sit through all that. And then I hit O again. I'm sorry, not again, but O is the quick key for mark out. Basically, you're just marking these things. Now, if you forget that I and O are the quick keys, the other thing you can do is go up to mark in the top, and you can do in or out. Okay.
Yes, you guys have shortcuts on your keyboard.
So, and don't feel. Just make sure that you don't get them confused either. That in is the starting point and out is the ending point. Okay. So after you have the in point and the out point that you want, you hit log clip. Okay. Oops, I forgot to put a description in. Well, look at that. It reminds me to do it. That's wonderful. Okay, so I just do, I'm going to call it good play. I don't know, let's pretend that means something to me. I can put a little log note in there that I want, like, you know, good take or something, right? And then I can even mark good. This is a nice little thing. I put a little check mark over in my log marks. Just a little check that just says, like, this is the take I wanted because I checked it off, kind of a thing. And then you just hit OK, and over here you get this little clip, this little icon that has a slash through it. Okay, that means that it's a logged clip. It's been logged, but it hasn't been captured. Okay, so the file hasn't been created yet for this video. We don't actually have the video footage. We just have the map going on. We just have that idea of where to start the clip and where to stop the clip. So after you make a bunch of those, like let's say, okay, I'm doing another one in, and then I'm going to wait for a little bit out, okay. And then I'm logging that clip. You can say bad play or something. Maybe they stunk that one up or something. And make another clip, okay. After I have all my clips together and I'm ready to capture them so that I actually get the video footage, I'm just going to go over here and select all the ones that I want to capture. Or if all I have is ones that if I want to capture all of them, I don't even have to do that. I'm going to go over here to batch. It's right next to capture now, okay? So just remember the name batch. Okay, and then you can choose whether you want to do just the selected items in the logging bin or whether you want to do all the items in the logging bin. This is your logging bin. It just has, it's just whatever has the slash is in your logging bin. Offline items in the logging bin. So I guess that what that means is basically if it has these little slashes through them, it means that it's offline. Okay, so it means that right, if you lose your files, they go offline. Okay, so once you have that, once you select the top part, that whichever setting you want, then you want to make sure that your capture preset is correct. There should be no reason why it's not really correct, because it should be the same as your capture now. It'll tell you how much space you need for it. That's pretty nice, because then you know how big your file is going to be. And then you just hit OK. And it'll come up with this little dialog box. Make sure you don't walk away before then. That kind of stinks when you find out, when you come back out a half hour later and you find out that it didn't really do what you asked it to do because you didn't hit continue. But then you just hit continue, and it does it for you. At this point, do your math homework. You know what I mean? Like, you just do whatever you want. It does it for you. So talking about DVD Studio Pro is kind of like opening like a can of like firecrackers or something. I mean, it's just like there's so much to talk about on it. Now, the way that I would recommend to always make a menu in DVD Studio Pro is to first make a Photoshop file if you want a still menu. Okay, make it look exactly how you want it to look in the original video. Don't flatten your layers, okay? But do save it as a JPEG, okay? When you're done having the Photoshop file the way you want it. Something to think about when you're making DVD menus in Photoshop, make sure you have a good idea of where the title safe would be, because the worst thing like in making DVD is really like cutting the text of your buttons off. Make sure that like you basically have like margins, yes, margins, so that nothing gets cut off. Once you have like a background that you like, you want to import that into there, and that you basically do that by coming over to the asset window and hitting import. Okay, and then you're going to find your file that you want to import. You're going to import that background. You're also going to import any of your other things that you're going to be working on with the project, like your video that you want to include. Let's say that I wanted this video to be on the DVD. I would import that. And you can import several things at once, and I recommend that you do because it's a time saver. And basically that's all it means. Assets are what it is that you have to work with. It's like your resources. You're telling it, and this is just like relinking things in Final Cut Pro, where you're telling it where to find those things. And once again, if you move them, you're going to have to redo your whole DVD project file. So when you find something that you want to import, you're just going to hit import, okay? I'm hitting cancel because I've got a lot of other stuff in here already. Once again, naming things as you go through is really helpful, because once you have all these different assets and these different title menus, it just gets kind of crazy. So having things named makes it so much easier for you. But you can look at the progress of your DVD at any point by hitting simulate. So you can see if this was the menu, like this was our DVD, we can see that this would be the background of the menu. Okay. Now, if I was really making this a menu, I would probably have like some text here or something for a button. Okay, so let's pretend I have some text there. I'm going to come into here and I'm going to make a button by making an area, like a selection area. And it's hard to see against the white, but that actually says button 1. We're going to click on that button. It pops up in here. It says name button 1. And then we're going to select the target, set the target. Okay, if you have something to set it to already, you're going to set it just by going in and selecting whatever it is that you want it to go to when you hit the button on the remote control. If you just want to play a video, it's going to be whatever the file name of your video is, or you can have the button linked to another menu or something like that. let's say that, you know, you've got grandma's birthday video and she's, you know, we want that button, the first button, to link to grandma's birthday video. So first thing we have to do is make a track for that before we can actually set the target for that button. So we're going to go to Project, Add to Project, Track. Okay, you see another box come up. This is a track, and we can just double click on that and we get the track down here. Okay, then we're going to come into our assets. Let's pretend that we've already imported grandma's birthday video. Okay, and it's in a QuickTime file. Okay, and we're just going to bring it down onto the track that it should be on to. Most often, if there's audio already like linked to it, like if it was exported with the audio is going to come down on its own. If you exported them separately, you'll have to bring the audio in separately and drag it onto here separately. But you can always test and make sure that it's done correctly by playing it down here, and it'll show you. Okay. All right, so let's say that's our track. I probably should have been our menu, but oh well. That's what we want button 1 to play. So we come back here to button 1, and we set the target to that. Tracks and stories. We know that our track is called track 1, so we're just going to hit that we want it to be the track, that track. Okay. Really important, especially if you're going to have several videos on something, is setting end jumps. And what an end jump is whatever happens after something is done doing whatever it was supposed to do. So for a track, it's supposed to play the video. But what does it do after it's done playing the video? You have to tell it, right? So let's say we wanted to go back to the main menu. We would have to select that track like we did just now, and then we would have to set its end jump. It says it right here, end jump. This little box is like the key to everything. Okay, so you want to make sure that that's open, and if it's missing, you'll have to go find it under Window. And we're going to set the end jump to menu 1. Okay, so we came in here, just to review, we came in end jump, we selected the drop-down menu, and we went into menus, then we're coming down to menu 1, and we're selecting menu. Okay, now when this track is done playing, it's going to jump back to the main menu. So the main menu is what will show as soon as that track is done playing and doing its thing. Okay, and you do basically the same thing for absolutely every asset that you want. And you can see that actually visually, it's created a link. After you get all your assets in there, your tracks, you've defined your buttons, you've defined your end jumps. You might want to think about, and I'm saying this as an afterthought because this is I didn't know if I was going to run out of time and be able to tell you this or not, but really something you should think about when you're actually making the menu. And this is probably not the best example. Actually, it's this menu that's got one. I have what's called an overlay on this menu. What it means is that when this button is highlighted, like when the remote control is on that button, it's going to be white. When I select the button, when I hit OK or Enter on the remote control, it's going to turn another color. Okay, so that indicates to the viewer, okay, it's, you know, I've selected that button. I understand that. Or if they want to like go down to the next button, that one turns off and the next one changes color. Okay, the way that you make that happen is by creating what's called an overlay. And an overlay is a separate project file. It's a separate JPEG basically. So most people, what they do is when they go into Photoshop and they make their image file for the background of their menu, they'll take the same exact file and just delete everything except the part that they want to change color. Okay, so in that case, it would be these dots. All right, and let me see. I will show you what my overlay for this one looks like. That's what it looks like. Okay. For you guys, since you're new to it, I would say do an overlay like this. You want it to only be black and white and no other colors, okay? The black areas are going to be what changes color, and the white areas are going to be what doesn't get affected, okay? So the way that you determine how it changes colors is by going by selecting the button that you want to affect, and generally they'll all get affected the same way, but you just got to select a button to start with. And then you come over to this box, and you come over to colors, okay? And then you can change the colors that they go through. All right, when it says mapping type, you want to make sure it's grayscale.